there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you my first book haul of 2021. All of the books here are gifts, so I have to say a big thank you to my family because a lot of them come from my family, and a special thank you to them particularly because even though every year they ask what do you want for Christmas and I say books and they say why do you need more books, they still never fail to get me mostly books for Christmas, and I really like that about them. So thank you so much to my parents and my three sisters, April, Tamara and Simone, for these presents. And if I mention it's from somebody else, it's because it is from someone that's not family. But if I don't say anything, it's from family. So let's get right down to the books. The first one I have here is a Christmas present I've already started reading, and that is Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the third and final book in the Day of a Bad trilogy, and I am a third of the way through. I am buddy reading this with Nicole from Who Picked This Book, and we started it as soon as we both had a copy of the book. What can I tell you? I can tell you about the first book. So the first book follows Nari, who lives in Cairo, and she is a thief who's just trying her best to get by, and she has some special abilities that she does not quite understand, but she does this ritual which is supposed to cool the jinn down from the heavens, but she doesn't believe in all of that jazz. However, maybe some things happen that she didn't expect and she gets whisked away into another world that she never imagined could have existed. I feel like that summary doesn't quite cover everything that happens in this series because it's wild, but I don't want to give anything away just because it's so much fun and you should experience it for yourself. I will be telling you more about this book when I finish it, maybe in February, probably not in January because of university, but I am so excited to be reading this one. I don't know how everything is going to go down in this last book, but it's been good so far. It's been really good so far. The next book I have to tell you about is a series that's put into one book, and that is the first volume of the Collection of Saga. This is written by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, written and drawn by them, and I've read the first two volumes in this collection back when I was in a country where I had an English speaking library, and I really enjoyed it and wanted to continue, but then I moved so I wasn't able to continue, and now I'm going to be able to continue. So this is a graphic novel series and it's science fiction, and it's about these planets basically which are in war with each other, and there are two people who are on opposite sides of the war and they fall in love and have a child, and it's from this child's perspective, and because they've made a symbol of peace that the two fighting sides can, you know, unite and be peaceful, both sides of the war want to eliminate this family. And I really love it. I really love all the characters, and I really love where it's going and how there are so many parallels to our everyday life when it comes to interracial relationships and war and such. I'm just having such a blast in those two first volumes, so I can't wait to continue reading the series, and this is the first 9 volumes all up in one. The next book is one I got because I've been watching a lot of best books of 2020 videos. Those are some of my favorite videos to watch at the end of the year. I just love them. If you have one, let me know. I'll probably go and watch it. And yeah, this is a book that I've seen popping up on a lot of those favorites lists, and I lent my harp out to someone and she returned it, and with it she returned it with a gift and I got a book, and that is A Little LiFi, Hanya, Yanagihara. And this one follows these 4 students who are very close friends, and their friendship especially centers around Jude, who is this guy who has a very troublesome past, and that's all the synopsis really tells you, and mostly people keep it vague with their synopses, so I don't know exactly what this one is about, but everyone says it is just such a sad and heartbreaking book, and you know how I feel about those kind of books. I like to read all the sad books, so I'm very curious to read this one and find out exactly why everyone loves it so very much. Up next we have a trilogy that's all in one book, and that is the Binti complete trilogy by Nnedi Okorafor, and I have already read the first book in this series. I regret getting the first book in the series before doing proper research and knowing that the trilogy was out in a bind-up so you can get all of them, because they are novellas. They're quite short at under 100 pages each, so all of them in one bind-up is definitely preferable, especially in terms of saving some money. And I read the first one and I've been picking it apart in my Afrofuturist dissertation, and I've been really enjoying looking deep into the story, so I'm very much eager to continue this series with the last two books. In the first book we follow Binti, and she comes from a tribe on a planet, but she gets offered a position at this school which is very prestigious and it's very hard to get into, and she decides to leave the world that she knows behind and go to this school. But along the way something unfortunate happens on the spaceship which is very dangerous and puts her life in jeopardy basically. And it's a really good book. It deals with some very interesting themes to do with colonization, to do with race, and it's just so much in such a short book, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to finishing off this series. We have Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this one was a gift from the lovely Nicole from Nicole and Her Books. I love Nicole's channel and I was really happy to be able to meet her when I was in Australia, which was really nice. And she's got this great video series going on called the TBR Completion Project, which is just so much fun, and you should definitely go and check out her vlogs. But she sent me Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, which I'm very much looking forward to. I've only heard glowing reviews, and this one is about Enchanted. She really wants to be a singer, and when she's at an audition, a famous R&B artist called Corey finds her and decides that he's going to be the one to help her get into the limelight. However, things quickly spiral, and before Enchanted knows it, her relationship with Corey has turned into something horrific that she does not quite know how to escape. Everybody says this one is really emotional and really portrays a realistic depiction of how some things can go very wrong in certain industries, and I'm curious to read this one. I've also heard great things about Tiffany D. Jackson's works, but I haven't read a single one before, and that's something that I need to do. This one was definitely from my parents, and that is the complete set of Death Note, and this is a manga series that I really enjoyed. Wait, first let's look at this box. Look at that, it's stunning. I don't always keep the box for box sets, but I will definitely be doing it for this series because it's absolutely beautiful. And I've watched the anime of Death Note before. I tend to watch the animes and then read the manga, rather than with books I like to read the book first and then watch the adaptations. But with this one I've already watched the anime, so I can tell you what the first book is about. There's the dark editions, which are black, and they have 2 volumes bound up in one in the complete box set, but I think my parents just chose to go with the classic. So like, look at this. Ah, it's beautiful. There are 13 volumes, and I'm just holding up the first one while I talk about the collection. So Death Note is set in Japan, and we follow this character called Light, and there's also these gods of death that exist in this world, and the gods of death have these notebooks, and if they write in their notebook, that person dies, because that's what they're supposed to do as the gods of death. And they're very bored, so one day this particular god decides to drop his notebook down to the human world, and Light finds it and picks it up and slowly figures out what it is and whether it works or not. And then it's a question of how is he going to use this notebook that can kill people if he writes their name down in it. This one, it turns into just such a psychological series, and it's so fantastic. I really loved it. I think it was the second anime I ever watched, and I've read the first 2 volumes in this series before, and now I'm looking forward to being able to finish reading this manga series. We're gonna move on to a section of middle grade books now, and the first one I have to show you is Song for a Whale by Lynne Kelly, and this one was a gift from Bev from Confuzzled Bev, and she has a blog, so I'll leave a link to that down below. So this one is a middle grade where we follow our deaf main character, and she struggles with the fact that nobody takes the time to listen to her because it's harder to communicate with her as she is a deaf girl at her school. And she is a bit of a tech genius and discovers that there is a whale whose whale song cannot be heard by any of the other whales. And she really starts to relate to this whale because other people are not listening to her and hearing what she has to say, and she decides she's going to use her tech skills to the best of her ability to help this whale out. I've seen some really good reviews for this book, and the cover is absolutely stunning, and I decided I really wanted to read this middle grade. It would be nice to see some deaf representation. I don't know if it's own voices or not, but I'll definitely look into that. And thank you so much, Beverly, for this book. I cannot wait to read it. So the next 2 go together, but they're from different people. So I've got a good friend called Taylor. Her Instagram handle is Iridescent Blaze, and we've been talking for many years. And then we've also got another bookstagrammer who's called Lakeisha from Elle Book Nerd, good, and she used to be a blogger and became a bookstagrammer, and we always exchange gifts on our birthdays. My birthday's coming up towards the end of the month, and she sent me an early birthday present, which is why it's already included in this haul. So I've got 3 Christmas presents from Taylor, and one of them is in this series, and then the other one is from Lakeisha. So we have here Wundersmith and also Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. So you probably already know that I have a read along for this series that's going on with Sabine from Sabine's Book Nook. So thank you so much to Taylor and Lakeisha for gifting me these books, because it's going to be very helpful to have them for the read along. It follows a girl called Morrigan Crow who is cursed to die on a certain birthday, but before that can happen she gets whisked away by Jupiter North to the world of Nevermore, where she is invited to join this school, and that's all I really know. It sounds like so much fun and I can't wait to read the series. If you want to join us, I'll leave information about the read along down below with me and Sabine's announcement video, so you can join us if you want. And we do need to take a moment. I got the first 2 in paperback, but Hollowpox is in hardcover, and look at it without the dust jacket. It's stunning. It's so beautiful. And then we have the other 2 gifts from Taylor. One of them is another middle grade, and that is The Fowl Twins by Eoin Colfer. If you've watched any of my wrap-ups in the past few months or my favourites books of 2020 video, you'll know that I loved and adored the Artemis Fowl series, and I spent a lot of time going back and forth as to whether I want to try the Fowl Twins series, which is a spin-off series to follow the Fowl twins and what they get up to, but I decided I did want to give it a shot, at least give the first book a shot, so I'm looking forward to reading this one. Thank you, Taylor. I'm just fingers crossed it's going to be just as good as the main series. And last but not least, she also got me Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler, and I don't know that much about this book because I've avoided reading the synopsis. I read 2 of Butler's novels last year. One of them ended up being my favourite book of 2020, which was Kindred, and I just want to read more of her works. I've already got Wild Seed, and now I also have Fledgling, which is her vampire novel. I love vampires, so I'm very curious to see what she is going to do with the vampire in her books. I'm very, very curious. So we've got my last 3 family Christmas gifts. The first one is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, and this is a short story collection of a variety of stories on a variety of topics. I read 2 of the short stories in this collection for my creative writing class in 2nd year, so it's 2 years ago now, and one of them was the Green Ribbon story, which is pretty famous, so you might know about it, and then the other one was this apocalyptic story, and I head over heels adored both of them. I have to read a lot of short stories for class, but sometimes some short stories stand out so much that I want to read the whole collection, and that is the situation here. I've heard great things about this one, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what else she has to offer with her stories. Up next we have a historical fiction book. I've been wanting to get back into the historical fiction genre, so I'm very much looking forward to reading The Foundling by Stacey. I read and reviewed The Familiars back when it came out, so I'll leave a link to my 5 reasons to read The Familiars video down below, but ever since The Foundling came out, I have been eagerly anticipating reading this one too. So what happens is a mother leaves her illegitimate child at a foundling hospital, and years later she's come back to reclaim her child, and she gets the shock of her life when they tell her her child has already been reclaimed by somebody else, and now she's desperate to find where her child is and who is the person who has claimed her own child as their own. And I'm just curious to see what Stacey Halls is going to bring to the table next. I have complete faith in her writing to make this a very good book. The last one is from my Secret Santa. We do Secret Santa within our family every year, and I got the first bind up of the Inspector Alleyn mysteries by Ngaio Marsh. So Ngaio Marsh is a classic crime fiction author. I've only read 3 of her books before, which were another bind up like this that I read when I took crime fiction in university, and of that collection I really enjoyed 2 of them, but those were not the first ones in the series. Like Agatha Christie, you can just dive in anywhere, and this is the first one in the Inspector Alleyn series, so I'm looking forward to going straight to the beginning. This bind-up includes A Man Lay Dead, which is the first one, Enter a Murderer, and The Nursing Home Murder. So they're all murder mysteries. To give you a bit of an idea, A Man Lay Dying is about a murder mystery game that a man hosts at his house, and then a murder actually occurs. Enter a Murderer is when there's a play on stage going on, and one of the props is a gun for a fake death scene, but it turns out it's a real gun and a real bullet is fired and a murder happens on stage. And then last but not least, we have a nursing home murder, which has to do with a murder that happens at a nursing home, and two of the surgeons there have a very good cause to want the person dead who's in the surgery, but Inspector Alleyn needs to know who's done it and why. And they all sound like a bit of the stereotypical kind of setup. You've probably seen these kind of murder mysteries in some TV shows or something, but I'm still very much looking forward to them. I know Inspector Alleyn even has his own TV show, so there's that. But I really enjoy classic crime fiction. I haven't read it as much lately, ever since I finished reading the Sherlock Holmes in the earlier half of 2020, but I do want to get back into doing so again. And then we've got two more sections to this haul. The next one is going to be some books that were sent for review by Book Break. They're always very kind in gifting me some review copies, so I've got three books to talk about here. The first one is Dear Reader by Kathy Rensenbrick, and this one is a non-fiction book that's kind of an ode to reading and the reasons why we read and what we love about reading, and I'm very much looking forward to reading this. It's very quick and I think I'm gonna just really enjoy it. It's got a beautiful cover. I am a reader. It's always nice to read books about reading. Ramasia by Radia Hafiza, and this is a middle grade novel which is coming out on the 1st of April, and this one is a retelling of some fairy tales combined. I think it's got Rapunzel in there and Sleeping Beauty and maybe Cinderella as well. There's three fairy tales that are combined to make this story, but it's putting a bit of a Muslim twist on the stories. So for example, in the Rapunzel retelling, the girl has to let down her hijab and such, and it just seemed such a fun, different and new take on the retellings that I wanted to give it a go, and it seems like a fun middle grade novel. Last but not least, we have The Office of Historical Corrections by Daniel Evans, and this one is a short story collection that's coming out on the 4th of March. I literally just watched Elena from Elena the Great talk about why she really enjoyed this short story collection, which made me all the more excited. But it's short stories to do with the themes of race and identity and living in America, and it just sounds like it's going to be a really memorable and good collection with fantastic writing. So I'm looking forward to getting to this one. I feel like I've said that many times across this haul, but it is the truth. And now, last but not least, before I let you go, I've got a very exciting unboxing to do of an eco-friendly book subscription box, and in this box you do not get any items, you only get books, but I'll leave it to past Olivia, who is very excited to open this box, to tell you all about it. The book box company is called A Box of Stories, and they are based on the fact that publishers publish a lot of books and they print out a lot of books in big rounds, and sometimes those books don't sell as much as they were expecting. And what can they do with those books that don't sell as much? Well, there's not really much other option for them except to pulp them, to chuck them out basically, because they can't just donate them everywhere and have a flood of books so no one's buying from them. And what A Box of Stories does, and where they come in, is that they buy those books that are set to be pulped at a discounted price, and then they put it in a box for you, so you get 4 surprised books that you are basically saving from being chucked out, which sounds like a really good thing to do, and it's more environmentally friendly and recycling and such and reusing. And you can do it by genre. You can get 4 mystery books or you can get 4 young adult books, but I went for 4 surprise books from a mix of genres just because I like to be surprised and I like to read a little bit of everything, so I don't mind getting a bit of a mix. If you would like to get a Box of Stories box, I have a link down below where you can get a couple pounds off your box when you order through that link. So I've ripped off, you can see the ugly ripping of my address so I don't, you know, expose myself. Okay, you can't see anything yet. Now we've got some stats for you, which I think will be interesting. The first one is that 77 million books are destroyed in the UK every year. 83% of these books are pulped before they've even been read, and they want to save these amazing books. So you're basically a book superhero. I have never heard of any of these books, but I'm very surprised that the first book I pull out of this box is a hardcover with sprayed edges. Okay, look at these black sprayed edges. It's a hardcover and it says Waterstones signed edition. Limited signed edition. Can you believe that this was going to be chucked out. This book is called We the Survivors by Tash Orr, and I just read a little bit of what it's about. So we follow our main character who lives in Malaysia, and he's always dreamed about a life beyond where he lives in Malaysia. And he goes through a series of events and it ends up to him killing someone, and it's about what can drive this person who was so ambitious with so many goals to kill a man. I find this very interesting. I don't think I've read a book that's set in Malaysia before, and I'm also intrigued because the author himself has got Malaysian parents and was born in Taipei, so it's nice to try this book. Okay, the next book I see is The Last Ballad by Wiley Cash, and this is a historical fiction book. We're following our main character whose husband has run off again, and she's left with 4 children and she needs to find a way to support them, and I believe that some things are going down in Europe with the Bolshevik menace, and she's trying to manage being a family member, looking after her children and making enough money. So that's what it sounds like this one is about. The next book I see here is The Last Act by Brad Parks, and this is a thriller. So we're following our main character Tommy, whose life isn't quite going as planned, and his friend, his mate, is an FBI agent. And basically his friend says, if you can help me out in this case, all he has to do is act like a bank robber and befriend a certain someone so the FBI can take down this drug cartel. That's all I know about this. I'm not going to read too much more into the synopsis because with thrillers I actually don't like to know too much. I've been trying to get into thrillers a little bit more. I've been trying to get into historical fiction a bit more. So it's actually good that I've got 2 of those kind of books in this box because it can push me to reading them. So here we've got Somebody's Mother, Somebody's Daughter by Carol Ann Lee, and it says these are true stories from victims and survivors of the Yorkshire Ripper. It was not about the Yorkshire Ripper at all. It was actually about the victims and their story and giving them a voice. I think I'm going to be interested in giving this one a go. So there you have it. Those are the 4 books that I've managed to save by getting a box of stories. Again, if you're interested in getting your own one, there is a link down below where you can do so, and thank you to A Box of Stories for sending me this box. And there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me in this book haul video. Please let me know in the comments section down below what was the last book that you bought, received or acquired, and thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't you forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior. Compendium. The next book I have to tell you about is a compendium. Oh, never mind.